We are here with a very special guest, Jessica Chung, the Senior Director of Marketing at the MTY Group, leading a number of brands, which I'll let you share, Jessica. I've known you for a while, and we've had the opportunity to work together for a long time, and so I'm super excited to chat with you today and have you just share a little bit of a peek behind the curtain on what your journey's been like, how you're playing the game today, and we're going to spend a little bit of time getting vulnerable, talking about challenges of modern day marketers and for you yourself. So, with all that said, Jessica, it's long overdue. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. You talk about vulnerability, and I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah,
But yeah,
you're saying
I guess
you told me that you're saying yes to more things. Tell,
yes,
tell me about that.
yes. I'm saying more yes to things because talking about vulnerability. Um, uh, these podcasts, I watch and listen to a lot of podcasts, and I guess my biggest fear is like what I say lives on the internet, right? So for me, I said, you know what, let's do it. I'm saying yes to more things. I am opening myself to be vulnerable and just taking it as it comes and, learning and growing at the same time. I think
Yeah,
that there's so much to be with the networking, and there's so much to learn from other people as well. There's no harm in, talking about your experiences, sharing notes. Like it's a great opportunity. So thank you for having me on this podcast.
let me brag about you for a little bit, and then I'll tee you up. So, when I first met you, Jess, it was earlier, much earlier in your marketing career, right? Young, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, managing 15 different hats in a more junior role, and from day one, there's always been a passion and a curiosity and a drive and a generosity and a willing to accept feedback from other marketing leaders and that sort of started you on this trajectory that I got front row seats to in sort of growing your accountability and growing your experience, and then walking into a leadership role, which you have the unique privilege of figuring it out as you go and really making a lot of advancements and growth there. So I think that pride for me comes as the natural word. I'm proud to see your growth and where you've come, and I just think that where you sit today, you have an opportunity and a privilege to share so much and help other marketing leaders that have ambitions to become, whatever title they want within the marketing world. So I appreciate your willingness to do that. So let's start here, Jess. Give us
You sound like a girl dad, like a
well, I have a lot
proud
of practice.
moments. You sound like a girl dad.
Totally, and so let's give just a little bit of an overview summary of sort of what has the journey been like for you? What were the stops along the journey, and maybe what did you learn about that yourself, and what did you learn as you went to where you are today?
Well, where I started, it was I was fresh out of school, graduated with administration, focusing in marketing, and I landed on this job that I didn't think that I would get into, let alone like this industry that I'm in, which is like QSR, quick service restaurants. So learning a new industry was a bit of a learning curve, but fully understanding like business as like the like typical, I guess, bones and skeletons of running a business, I understood. But being in the QSR industry is a huge, steep learning curve. And after figuring out how this business works, um, it was for me, it was just like, here's a project, here's a task, do it.
Right.
And then once you did that over and over and over again for many years, you start to get kind of like in the same routine, not bored, but like I need a challenge. From there, I grew from a coordinator to a manager focusing on social and digital because at that time, social and digital was like the hype. It was everything. And as you know, it's evolved so much that keeping up with that, um, I could do social and digital performance marketing as my one job and I would be fulfilled. There's a lot of work that goes into that. Um, but, wearing 15, 20 different hats, that was my role in terms of having to execute LTO campaigns, having to do strategy, having to look at social and digital, and then also keeping up with all types of marketing trends.
Right.
Like that is challenging in itself. Um, but my growth, where I really saw my skill set being recognized and um, used and appreciated, there was value in what I was in my experience, was in my current role right now. And the difference was is leadership.
Mm.
Leadership plays such an important role in how I developed and how I strengthened and how I had a mentor. And some of the resources currently at MTY that they offer, the human resources department put together like almost this university or like college kind of campus that we can continue learning. And they bring in speakers, they bring in experts in different fields, whether it's operations, marketing, franchisees. They bring all of those resources to us to continue learning within our company. And I think that's really helped me gain more insight. And outside of my day to day, it gives me a nice break
Yeah.
into the day in, day out, where I can actually polish and hone in my skills and remind myself. Sometimes you're so busy that you forget you're just doing, everything's just so transactional and so like delegative that you kind of forget sometimes like why you're in this role and what you love to do.
Yeah. So for those Canadian listeners, what is your main focus brand right now, and where has your oversight sort of grown to over the last 6 to 12 months?
So when I started at MTY, I started as a director looking after the brand for Taco Time, and then it grew into more brands. So I now have Extreme Pita, Mr. Souvlaki, and Mrs. Vanelli's.
Jeez, that's the downside of being great at your job, right? You get more things thrown at you. So let's park that for a second. I want to go back to, you talked about this environment that you came into that was rich with leadership and mentorship and resources, and you're basically saying that those things, as scaffolding plus your innate drive and the experience that you accumulated, kind of created the best possible scenario for you to become the leader you are today. So, um, if you were talking to a marketing leader that had concerns or challenge around that scaffolding, like there was no leadership, no mentorship, how can you win in that scenario, or can you?
I don't want to say to like trust your intuition, because that is so aloof. Because we all have things going on in our life, family, finances, all of this. So to like just to trust your gut is so aloof. Um, I guess I've been really lucky in that sense where I've had these opportunities and the connections that I've made. For anybody that is trying to grow um, in their career, I would say networking is so important and just talking to people in the industry. Don't be afraid to talk to C suites and executives. If you can identify that they are, these C suites and these executives are great leaders, they will give some time to you and just provide you with a little piece of advice. Um, Even exploring any kind of coaching would also help you guide you in your career path and kind of like hone in. They're like the therapists of the business world. So they'll kind of guide you in a way that would help you develop your skill set or find what you're missing and identify like, oh, this is the pain point that you can't see. This
Right.
is what you've been burying and avoiding. So try this. But the most direct route is just networking. Go to those networking events, go to those marketing events that you're invited to, and just talk. Even conferences too. I encourage my team, like, what conferences are you really interested in? Like, let's go. Let's go meet some like industry top leads, talk everything from AI to like data to content marketing, whatever. I think that's important just to have those conversations.
When you walked into the experience at Taco Time, and you had this mentor in Wendy. really, and others. But how did you, like, it's one thing to be in the same office or in the presence of a mentor, but it takes some proactive energy on your behalf to really tap into that and extract from that the building blocks for your career. So like, do you remember, or can you recall, like, what did it look like for you leaning into this source of guidance and coaching and mentorship, and how did you use that to accelerate your career growth?
Trust, developing that trust and transparency with them. That's how I eventually looked at my own challenges and like my own skill set where I needed to, not skill set, but like
Yeah.
whatever I needed to work on, and I needed to be okay with it.
Hmm.
So, first, it was identifying what I can work on and not be super harsh on myself, but imposter syndrome, right? But ultimately, trust and transparency.
Yeah, and you've always, I didn't mention at the beginning, but you've always just expressed or displayed a ton of humility. I think a lot of times, whether it's in marketing or other departments, you have experienced some success early in your career and you're young and you're full of piss and vinegar. There's a tendency to come in with a bit of hubris, a little bit of which uh, blocks ultimately your ability to grow. So what I'm hearing from you is like you came in, and it's, when you say trust, it's not like you're trusting that person, but you're also trusting yourself to admit that you don't know what you don't know, and fight the constant saboteur in your mind saying that you're
Yeah.
not good enough. Humility and graciousness of yourself, I think, are two things that have catapulted you within a very short period of time. So I'm curious, this was the first opportunity where you were not only leading a marketing function, but now all of a sudden there's a team of people involved. And so, what have you learned about yourself in terms of your style of leadership? Like, and how did that fit when you were trying it on for size at the beginning? And how has it changed?
I honestly felt like I had the natural leadership qualities. Defining that took some time, took some courses, took some like a lot of reading. Um, my style of leadership, I would say, is more of a servant style leadership.
What
Although
does that mean?
it's
What does that mean to you?
to me, it's just prioritizing the growth of my team, focusing on their goals, where they want to be, personal and professional development. So, developing like a relationship with my direct reports is really important to me. I'm an open door. Whether they want to share anything in their personal life, I don't care. If they want to share, great, fine. But more on their professional side, like we identify their strengths, their drive, and I put them in places where they really thrive. They really don't want to be doing X. I'm not going to force that on them.
Right.
If they really want to do Y, me fully knowing that they're not going to be with me, people leave, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I just want to foster a positive working environment, building really great relationships and promote employee satisfaction. That's kind of like my servant style. But
Hmm.
when you look at leadership and like the whole pie and the whole segments of different types of leadership, I like fall in between. Certain days it's like a servant style and then a delegative style, like, or transformational, like it's so all over the place. And I've been currently I'm working on finding the Jessica style. Like, what is my North Star? What
Right.
is my leadership brand? What is the legacy that I'm going to lead? And what are people going to expect when they work with me? So I'm trying to define that at this time.
You bring up such a great point in that, there's books and courses and things that we can refer to sort of build the infrastructure of our career, but at some point there needs to be what you just said, a decision around, I'm going to take that raw material and define Jessica's style, right? And I think a lot of marketing leaders, business leaders, they wait too long to do that. Maybe they don't give themselves the license or the permission to do that because it's like, well, the book says I got to do it this way. So you started by referring to what the book says, but you're in this unique and exciting time right now where you're building Jessica's version of what it means to be a marketing leader, senior marketing leader of people and function, which is amazing.
Yeah. And I think going back to like where my mentor has been like in my career path, developing trust in yourself, trust in your mentor, and being transparent. And I think that has led me to my leadership style. I'm not copying and pasting what my
Right.
mentor has helped me with in development because she's a different, very different role. She's a VP of like 5 brands as well with MTY. So her mindset is so different than my mindset with my team. Like it goes down, right?
Right. Right. Right.
So that's where I'm at right now, where I'm like, okay, I've identified what works for me in leadership, and then I've identified on day to day what my leadership style can shift to be. But
Yeah.
how do I rein that in? And how do I present that to be like, hey, as a leader, I am this.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. And again, it is so fun to have front row seats to this. I haven't had that same opportunity to lead a marketing function for a brand and a team like that. So almost get to live vicariously through you a little bit. Here's one for you, Jess. Like you mentioned imposter syndrome and this, I think, unrelenting voice that we as leaders, business leaders, marketing leaders have in our minds all the time. What, what, if anything, do you rely on today to intentionally rely on to sort of either ignore completely or quiet some of that unrelenting noise and voice telling you that Jessica, you're so far out of your depth, you don't deserve to be like, what do you do?
Eventually, it catches up to me, and that's where burnout happens. As a servant leadership style, I think I put so many people more in front of me, and
Mm-hmm.
I forget to take care of my needs and myself.
Right.
So, how do I quiet it? I literally ignore it, and day to day, it becomes like a routine where it's like, okay, quiet the noise, ignore it, focus on your work, deal with it, and then there is a 20-minute dump at the end of the day, and then that cycle starts all over again. So for me, it's like developed into a lot of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then eventually I hit burnout. And then, but I've recognized when the burnout's going to come. So I do what I call a just day, where I fulfill 3 things in my world to make me to switch my mindset and get me back to being myself. I do
Sweet.
something for my physical health, work out, go for a hike, take the dog out, whatever. So one thing is go for a physical need. Another one is a mental, so something for my brain. So whether it's creative, whether it's doing music, painting, something where it taps into my creative space, because this role that I'm in, there's a lot of emails. And
Yeah.
there's like a lot of like, you got to creatively think strategically, but I mean, like, just like playing music, go to a live show. So that's something for my brain, and then something for my heart. And that balances out brain, heart, and physical. So the heart thing could be um, something with my family, something with my husband, something that takes away any kind of strategic thinking or creative thinking, something that just fills my heart. So those are the 3 things that I need is a just day, and that kind
Wow.
of sets me back on the right track.
So do you sort of inject these jest days when you start to feel those early indicators, or is it a regular once per X period of time?
I strive for once a month, regardless of what's happening. If I have a good month or whatever, I strive for once a month. It's something that I need, and I've needed for a long time. Like I've been practicing these like personal days for many years, and I will tell my husband, I'm like, it's in the calendar. It's a just day. Don't bother me. Like,
unless, unless he's part of the heart time fulfillment.
yes, exactly. Unless it's part of my plans, my heart time, I'm like, don't bother me. The whole top floor is for me only. Don't bother me. So like, I'm lucky to have somebody who's like very receptive to that. So he's like, yeah, you
That's
do you,
awesome.
girl.
I love it. I think that that's really actionable and take a good takeaway for listeners. So not including things like monthly reports or performance reports or graphs or bar charts or anything that you can see to sort of quantitatively measure whether or not you're doing a good job. I'm curious, what do you rely on that's more gut felt, that's less tangible and quantitative, that allows you, when you're going home at the end of a day, um, that you rely on to say whether or not you did a good job as a leader of people, of function in your role? Is there anything that you rely on to tell you whether or not just you're doing a good job?
Literal feedback,
Okay.
and constructive feedback is something that I look at very seriously. Even I work with a great team of senior level directors, and even a hey, that presentation was awesome. That fuels me to continue
Yeah.
to do what I'm doing. It was just a presentation, but it does fuel me. Feedback is very important to me. Um,
What about
and
when feedback is really tough? Like, how do you handle that?
still, I take that, I walk away with it, and I'm like, all right, so whether it's I take it with a grain of salt or I take it seriously. Like it's up to me to kind of like decide my kind of next steps and my next move, whether it's important to me to move this way or important to me to move that way. I take feedback as it comes. Sometimes it hurts. Like sometimes it's a punch to your ego, but in marketing, sometimes I feel like in the world that I'm in, I feel like I need to stay humble, check your ego.
You do that naturally. So, um, I love that. The thing I'm curious about, and I want to spend a little bit of time on, is and really the point of this is not to solve all the world's problems in one episode, but to sort of shine some light on a problem or a thing that's really keeping you up at night. It could be really specific within the marketing function, or maybe it's more industry wide, but something that you find yourself spending a lot of your mental calories thinking about right now, and you haven't got it solved yet. And so I'd like to just have some back and forth on that, because my hope or my expectation is that someone listening might have something similar. So maybe if we can spend a few minutes sort of
Sure.
dissecting a problem,
Absolutely. Yeah.
might add some value. So what's the number one challenge that you're experiencing today?
There's so many.
Yeah, I was
Um,
going to say, or one of the number one challenges. Yeah. Right.
um, well, the challenges that I'm facing that are top of mind today, um, I think it's AI adoption, and
You're going to say, and you can't say AI adoption. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
and just like how that can affect our decision making, the complexity of like the data privacy around it, authenticity and how we're engaging with our network. And when I say network, it's like B2B, B2C.
Right.
So for me, like balancing creativity with the data, decision making, creative expression, authenticity, engagement, being like very conscious of like how AI, what's real and what's not.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a challenge for me.
Do you feel the pressure as a marketing leader, because everyone's talking about it, to, you know, I guess figure it out and figure out what the balance between science and creative and authenticity is? Is there, do you get any of those feelings?
Absolutely. Um, I think I think where we are now, we're in a good balance of like not being too far ahead using and adapting with AI, and we're not too far behind.
Right.
And I guess the result of what we are currently doing is still authentic. I'm having a hard time kind of figuring out where AI exists in our world. I think we all need to be really well versed in it, understand it, and understand where. it could help us and not
Yeah.
have this fear that AI is taking over marketing and
Right.
everything's fake. You don't know what's that. I think there's a potential for us to leverage AI in a very ethical way to help us grow and help us be more efficient, but at the same time being authentic. I think authenticity is like a huge part of it.
So at the heart of the AI conversation, I think that you're really what you're saying is that how are we keeping up, but how are we driving efficiency without it coming at the expense of authenticity and ethical
Yeah.
boundaries and these type of things. So tell me about efficiency. Like, why is efficiency so top of mind right now? Because I guess the argument would be, you could just avoid AI, you could just ignore it, but you talk about efficiency. So why is that a topic in your mind right now?
Well, budgets and resources. That's a
Right.
huge thing. Like shrinking teams, shrinking budgets, having to still execute at 1,000% with less money. How do
Mm-hmm.
we stay competitive? How do we leverage our resources? So we just need to find ways to optimize what we do and utilize technology to really maximize the impact. And
Yeah.
that's what the pressure is coming down to. Not that we're saying like AI is the answer to everything, but it certainly helps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Certainly helps.
So with efficiency, is there one or two things you can give as an example that you and the team have tried? It can be AI or not AI related, but in the topic of efficiency, what have you tried recently, and how did it work? Either it worked or it didn't, and why?
Like regarding using AI for
It could be
efficiency.
AI, but I want to make it. I'm more interested in understanding about this topic of how do we do the most we can with the resources and the constraint that is real that we have. So I'm curious on, like, when you talk about budget constraints and capacity constraints, is there anything that you've had to say no to that comes to mind in terms of, hey, we can't do everything, so we want to say no to this and we want to double down on that.
When it comes to managing budget and resources and prioritizing what our budgets are, in my QSR world, we have to prioritize the franchisees.
Mm,
When we see that same store sales are, you know, in the negatives compared to previous year,
yeah.
we need to then prioritize how we're going to help our network of franchisees succeed. There's a lot of distractions in the world right now. There's too much going on that you know when in marketing we need to. There's a balance between staying competitive, being innovative,
Hmm.
and when franchisees are suffering, we need to put everything that I have planned aside
Hmm.
and come up with something new and prioritize those sales and ensure that our business partners are successful.
Yeah. Keeping the main thing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's a great takeaway, I think, because especially in marketing leaders are so subject to the next shiny thing, or they see what their competitors are doing or what the industry gurus are saying, and it becomes very difficult to hear those things and actively and intentionally say no to those things. But one thing I have noticed about you in terms of your growth is that your ability to keep the main thing. We're all predisposed to, naturally wanting to follow the shiny object and do the next thing. But I've in interviewing over 200 marketing leaders, I think one common denominator is that they're really good at at saying no to 9 out of 10 things, but doubling down on one. And that can change whatever that one thing is from time to time. But that discipline and discernment, especially with you, Jess, because you're a creative person. Like, I think going all the way back to your beginnings, and live music and playing music, all this, that's got to be very hard for you. So what do you rely on to keep the main thing now in your career?
Oh boy.
What
Um,
allows you
that's a
to what
that's a.
allows you to avoid those shiny objects?
I can't. I love the shiny objects.
Right.
There's no avoiding it. I'm always just
Right.
so drawn to it.
Okay.
And I think I will always just present it, and I'll just be like, here's the next thing. And like we talked about feedback. If it's a no, if my boss is being a dream killer, I'll be like, okay, I'll just put that in my back pocket, and we'll revisit this later. I,
I love it. Yes, I love it because I think, the double-edged sword is that if we keep the main thing, and that's our mindset,
we'll never
slowly,
grow.
exactly, slowly and steadily, ideas won't be coming as much, and um, that's pretty cool, actually.
I
Yeah,
can handle a no. I can handle a no.
yeah, your answer to it was, I don't. I just chase the shiny objects,
Yeah,
but I'm okay if it's a not now thing.
yeah,
I love it.
for sure.
I've actually never heard that response to it, and I appreciate it. What is on your real or artificial sort of vision board for yourself as a marketing leader, as a professional? Like when you look at over the horizon the next 5-10 years, like what are some of the things that you really want to strengthen and develop for yourself? What is ideal growth look like for you?
Well, I'm currently seeking some coaching. Like I said, I've done all the courses, I've read a lot of books, I've read a lot of theory. Um, and within those courses, I've figured out like where I am. I'm trying to develop my Jessica brand, and I currently have three direct reports, and I want to move. I don't know, one day I'll move into a position where I have maybe 10 or 15 direct reports. So my focus right now is just like, how do I handle all those different type of personalities? And like and like how do I motivate the team where it really makes sense to everybody in my style? We all have orders that we have to follow. And I think I'm working on finding my style to motivate them. That doesn't seem like I'm just a puppet regurgitating, the strategy and the plans. Um, Trying to use my creative mindset and incorporate more creativity in my environment. Um, where I am right now, I feel like it's very transactional. It's very like delegative,
Hmm.
and I know I'm
How does that
creative. I
how does that
came.
make you feel? How does that make you feel?
Oh, it's very demotivating for me. Like, it doesn't make me feel good. And then this whole cycle of like syndrome starts flaring up. So I know what I can bring to the table. I just need to define it in like a literal brief.
Well, Jess, I mean, at the end of the day, that the data doesn't lie, and what I know, I'm obviously very familiar with the MTY group, and it's not accidental that Taco Time is sort of the definition of success. It's the pace horse amongst the group, and it wasn't always that way, right? And so, listen, I get it. I get what kind of a leader you are, and the humility, and at the same time, it's important to take a look back, right, and to take stock
Absolutely.
of what has been created. Where there's 70 other brands kind of looking at what Taco Time does. Um, so I love that you're on this pursuit and path of defining the way Jess is going to play this game, and coming into that chapter. And I think it's a word of encouragement for all marketing leaders is that imposter syndrome is not going to go away. None of these, but despite that, you have the opportunity to build your own version of who Jess is. Because at the end of the day, when you have A players coming to your team, they're not joining Taco Time, they're joining Jess. And so it's important to define who that is, so that you can really enjoy it. So Jess, I really really appreciate it. I think that you're doing a great job, and you have a lot to share with other marketing leaders. And I really enjoy learning from you about what does behind the scenes look like for you, and how are you playing this game of marketing leadership. So maybe leave us with one thought.
If I could leave with one thing, lead with kindness and lead as a human. There is nothing wrong with being empathetic.
Sure, I love it,
And
Jess.
that's coming from a very much a person that doesn't like being vulnerable.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Could have tricked me, could have fooled me. So thank you so much, Jess, for sharing a bit of your journey and your story. And I'm looking forward to continuing to see where it grows from here.
Amazing. Thanks for having me, Caleb.